Welcome Inside Appalachia. I'm Caitlin Tan. Today's story is about relationships, including the awkward missteps of first dates.
I proceeded to tell her all about me, which at that time was college dropout, practically negative credit score, default on student loans, all the stuff that you typically tell a woman to woo her.
I more or less left that dinner thinking, we should just be friends.
And we ask a biologist, do animals feel love?
Love? L-O-V-E?
I know.
No, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as in the animal kingdom. That's an emotional term.
All right, but really, for a second opinion, we call up a philosopher.
And yet we see it all the time with animals. So why is it that we tend to not want to really believe what we see?
Animals in love. Is it real? Those stories and more this week inside Appalachia. Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Caitlin Tan. It's the time of year when shelves are stocked with heart-shaped boxes of chocolate and oversized stuffed animals. There's red and pink everywhere. This week, we're re-airing our Valentine's episode from last year. I'd asked you all to share with us your Appalachian love story. And each one was so unique and different, which I think says a lot about love. So today, we'll hear about love from every angle. And if you listened to the episode last year, well, we have an update for you on one of the stories. That's later in the show. The first love story is from a listener in Morgantown, West Virginia. Courtney Ostaff met her partner Jason D. April 20 years ago. They found each other online, before all the dating apps like Tinder. Courtney had broken up with her fiancé in college, so she put together a list of 25 things she wanted in a future partner. And she posted it in the personals section on Yahoo.
Now, I got a ridiculous number of responses, and I certainly wasn't wasting dial-up on downloading pictures because, right, one high-res photo could have taken all night to download, and we only had one phone line. I wasn't doing that. And there were a handful of other interesting emails, but as it turned out, Jason has a way with the written word. He's sarcastic and he's acidic and he's hilarious. So I agreed to meet him in public at the movie theater at the mall in Bridgeport, back when the mall was a happening place, right? So I dressed up in a silk blouse and I did my makeup and I did my hair and I go up and I meet, and there's this tall, skinny guy with big glasses and big curly hair. And he looked even younger than I did, even though he's 5 years older. So he's just standing there and I'm like, oh, okay. Hi. Now, and I don't even remember what movie we saw, but what I remember is that he was quietly witty all the way through.
Really?
I was smitten. So, we've had some hard years and we've had some good years, but 20 years later, I am still wildly in love with my husband. I mean, I don't brag about it much because nobody wants to hear how happy somebody is, but he's so good to me. Now, last spring, he worked all day and then he came home and minded the children all evening so that I could write a book. I mean, that's how you get a book written, ladies. Your husband does all the household chores. That's how it happens.
Wow. What I like about your guys' story is, like you said, you didn't download a photo. You purely went off, do I like what this person is writing? Like, do I like their personality? Are they making me laugh?
We're really happy together. But I think part of that is to remember that it's a choice. And we have always chosen each other. Mm-hmm. Always. And he's done it for me and I've done it for him. And that matters.
So going forward, do you have any goals or hopes for your guys' relationship?
I'm 43 and my grandmother lived to be 96. So if I live to be as old as my grandmother, that's like another 50 years. Now, my husband is 5 years older, so he's 48, I think. 47, 48, somewhere in there.
Close enough.
But his family doesn't tend to live as long. So I kind of feel that I need to treasure the time that I have with him because I will outlive him. And I need to take this time that I have, because it may be 20 years, it may be 30 years, but it won't be forever. And I'm going to be alone without him.
Is there anything else you wanted to share?
If the person that you're dating doesn't make you feel good, if they don't say nice things about you or to your friends, then look for someone who wants you, who says nice things about you, even if they don't look like or do the things that you think that you want, because it's more important to be with somebody who wants you than to be with someone who looks good but doesn't really want you.
That was Courtney Ostaff speaking about her relationship with her husband, Jason DeApril. They live in Morgantown, West Virginia with their 2 kids. So we're talking about human love, but we're also curious about animal love. If you've ever observed animals interact, it seems like they feel love. Think about penguins. They mate for life. Or elephants, before they mate, they form a bond through wrapping their trunks together. It's a lot like a hug. And some types of wolves mate for life and help raise the wolf pups. So, is it true? Do animals actually feel love? A few years back, our producer Roxy Todd saw an otter that got her thinking about this question.
She looked really sad, all by herself on the rocks, not playing because there's no one to play with, and not swimming.
Roxy says she'd expected to see not one otter, but lots of otters, doing what otters typically do.
You know, like when you picture otters, what do you picture? Like they're having fun.
Right, and like silky, brown, velvety guys with big, beautiful eyes.
Yeah, and like swimming, I don't know. So I had this picture in my head, maybe like an expectation that they were going to be frolicking and doing all these tricks in the water.
But this otter seemed despondent.
I just kept wondering, like, what happened? And what was going through her head? And could she feel things like loneliness, I guess?
And if she could feel loneliness, Roxy wondered, could she also feel other emotions? Like, could she feel love? To find out, I called up Rich Rogers. Now, he's the fur bearer biologist for the West Virginia Division of Natural Resources, and he's also helping study the regional otter population. And so I asked him if there's noticeable love between otters, and maybe perhaps with their young.
Noticeable what?
Love with otters, like if you notice, I guess, with their young.
Love, L-O-V-E.
I know.
No, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as in the animal kingdom. That's an emotional term, but there's a fidelity to that family unit until those young disperse, and then no, there's nothing there.
But come on, that's the science side of things, right? I mean, I grew up surrounded by animals on a farm, and I felt genuine love from animals. And I also observed how lonely our one horse was until we got him a companion. Now, Rogers says love is an emotional term, but don't animals also have emotions?
Since Darwin, scientists have thought that there are some basic emotions that animals can feel.
That's Cynthia Willett, a professor of philosophy at Emory University. She published a book called Interspecies Ethics in 2014, which explores animals' wide variety of emotions.
Basic ones would include sadness. We could recognize that in animals, and I think we all can see that animals can be sad or happy. But Darwin did not include love. He did not include love among those basic emotions. And so there's been this prejudice or this bias, at least since that time, that animals could not experience love. And yet we see it all the time with animals. So why is it that we tend to not want to really believe what we see?
I mean, what makes us humans so special that only we can feel love? Willett says there's a few different types of animal love that she's studied. The mother to offspring love, which she says is clearly established, but also friendship love. Willett says in a recent study, a snake became friends with a hamster. It's prey. and that they even cuddled together. And so the third type of animal relationship,
the most surprising kind of love at all, is romantic love.
like love, like not just friendship love. Willett says a good example of this behavior is with birds. So much like us, birds have courtship rituals. Basically, they date. They bring food to one another, do dances, clean one another. Honestly, everything you want in a partner. So animals generally are social creatures, Willett says. They need companionship, which in a way is a form of love.
And without it, they start to lose that joie de vivre, that sense of being alive.
Joie de vivre is a French phrase, meaning that sense of life that gives us purpose, that makes life fuller and richer. Something we often find through relationships, love. And Willett says animals feel it too.
And when they don't have that, they shrink, they diminish, they have less energy, life goes dull.
Although Willett hasn't studied otters specifically, anecdotally, she says she's seen them play and bond with each other and humans, and that they kind of remind her of how dogs love. So, yes, Willett says she believes otters do feel love. And it's not that the science or biologists are wrong. There just might be more nuance. And for the West Virginia Wildlife Center, where Roxy originally saw that lonely otter, well, Trevor Moore, the biologist at the center, says he can't definitively rule one way or another on love, loneliness, or any human-like emotion.
Animals definitely have personalities. There are definitely individual personalities. You can see that's very well documented throughout the science and in captivity and in the wild. But how much we project our own emotions and our own view of them, I don't know.
But good news, Moore says the center is currently trapping otters to accompany the lone otter in the exhibit. So, what do you think? Do you think animals can feel love? Let us know. Inside Appalachia at wvpublic.org. Or send us a Valentine, 600 Capitol Street, Charleston, West Virginia, 25301. Okay, I'm probably a little biased here, but I have to say I lean more toward the philosophical perspective that Dr. Willett argues. I mean, I've definitely experienced love for my dogs, and they've gotten me through some especially rough moments. My dogs seem to accept me unconditionally. I recently talked with a young woman who feels the same about her dog. Ida Miller is the proud owner of Sephora, a black and brown German Shepherd mix. I initially met Ida and Sephora when I'd taken my dogs to the dog park in Morgantown. Sephora is somewhat of the gatekeeper or the queen of the dog park, if you will. She kind of vets the new dogs, if that makes sense. Everyone knows Sephora. Ida has had Sephora for 3 years. She adopted her in college. Ida says she almost gave Sephora up because owning her first puppy was really overwhelming.
Now she's like the love of my life. Like, I couldn't imagine being without her, like, even just for a day.
How do you feel like you guys have grown together?
I think Sephora has helped me so much as a person. When I got her, my mom had just passed away, like, less than a year before that. And I had also, like, one of my best friends, we had just ended our friendship from kindergarten until that point. So Sephora kind of helped me to, like, fill that void in a way. I mean, it was different, but, like, I was really lonely, and it helped a lot. And also, before I had Sephora, I was, like, out of control, like, partying. And so getting Sephora, like, I had to be, like, more responsible because I had to take care of her. And, like, I wanted to do that, too.
Since I've known you, you are, like, always with Sephora. And, like, I just feel like Sephora comes first now.
Oh, she does. Sephora comes before anything else. Like, I've even had, like, romantic relationships with men end because Sephora.
Sephora is, like, the true love and, like, the test of, like, whether someone else will be able to be a part of your guys' life.
Oh, yeah. Like, I hardly ever let men meet Sephora. I would pick Sephora over anybody else. I don't know. Like, even if I met my soulmate, like, if they weren't okay with Sephora, Like I would just have to tell the soulmate goodbye. I don't know,
Oh my
like
God.
I could never like betray my loyalties to Sephora. She just means so much to me.
Do you think you'd do anything special with her on Valentine's Day?
Oh, probably. I usually buy Sephora like a Valentine's Day gift. And
Really?
Oh yeah, I buy Sephora gifts for all of the holidays. Kind of like she's my child or something. Sephora lives a luxurious life for a dog, I guess you could say. So yeah, I'll be buying Sephora like some toys and some treats for Valentine's Day.
That was Ida Miller talking about the love of her life, her dog Sephora. Do you have a dog or a cat or heck, an iguana or even a fish that you feel a special affection and bond for? We'd love to see all the animals out there who listen to Inside Appalachia with their human companions. Tweet us a photo. We're at In Appalachia. Up next, more love stories. And we have an update on one of the stories from last year.
You can be with someone for 7 years, but if it's just not right, it's just not right. You know, it's like someone cannot be what you want. You can, I guess, fall out of love with someone.
More on that in a bit. You're Inside Appalachia. I'm Caitlin Tan.
Have you ever seen peaches grown on a sweet potato vine? Have you ever seen peaches?
Support for Inside Appalachia is provided by Concord University in Athens, West Virginia. With career-focused liberal arts education in more than 80 degrees and programs to pursue various career options, not just a single job. More at concord.edu.
I was recently talking with my grandmother, my Oma, about love, trying to grasp any wisdom I can from her. And I mentioned that we're working on an episode about love, and it turns out she has a special story of her own. So I asked her if it'd be okay if I switched on my recorder.
Yeah, my first love was a Russian soldier.
Which is, people should understand, is unexpected, given that you were a German living in East Germany.
Oh yeah, I am German, and I lived in Germany, in East Germany, and this was under the rule of Stalin. And it was everything was very precarious. So you were never safe, and anything could happen anytime.
And honestly, that's what makes this story so fascinating. Generally, East Germans lived in a lot of fear of the Russians, and they definitely didn't socialize with them. So as the story goes, my Oma, she was working at her father's lace factory, and in came a Russian soldier who was actually looking to buy lace for his family back home.
His name was Yuri Alexandrovich.
You still remember his last name?
And so I saw him. I liked him immediately.
What was it about him?
He was tall and blonde, blue eyes, and he had this. He was smiled.
Yeah.
He smiled all the time, and so my father introduced me to him. I hoped that I would see him again, but it was uncertain. And
How old do you think you were?
I must have been about 17,
Uh,
a teenager.
the time when we all kind of have that first love.
Yeah. And I just thought he was very handsome.
And could you guys communicate?
Well, he came in the door and I was at the other end of the office. And so then, when he was done with what he was doing, then he came over and he smiled. And he wanted to know my name.
But he spoke Russian and you spoke German.
He didn't speak German.
Right.
I didn't speak Russian.
So how did you guys communicate?
Well, just like, not with speaking, but with the eyes maybe. I was just fascinated by him, and he was very good-mannered, and yeah. And then he said he would like to see me again. I mean, he somehow, I don't know anymore how we communicated with words, not, but he may have learned a few German words.
Enough to say he wants to see you again.
Yeah, yes. First, my father invited him to our house in the afternoon for coffee.
Was that allowed? To invite a Russian soldier?
Well, we didn't ask anyone. We just did.
Yeah.
See? Well, anyway, we met again at my father's factory, and there was a table outside, and we sat down at the table. But we couldn't, we wrote and drew a few things that we could understand.
Could both of you have gotten, or maybe more so him, in trouble for
Yes.
spending time together?
That's right.
That's true?
Yeah, that's true.
So he kind of jeopardized his...
Yeah, he did.
Role as a soldier.
Yeah, he did. And then the next thing I heard was that he was transferred.
And during all this, East Germany was becoming pretty dangerous and increasingly cut off from the rest of the world. So before the border wall was completely finished, my Oma crossed illegally into West Germany. But she still thought of Yuri, He was her first love. So she learned Russian just in case she ever saw him again. And months later, Yuri showed up at her parents' doorstep in her hometown. He came in civilian clothes, and guess what? He had learned German.
So my mother told him that I was gone, and so he said he wants to go to West Germany and, be with me. Yeah, when my mother told him I was in West Germany, then he wanted to go there, and also illegally. And so my mother said to him, now you think that over carefully, because under Stalin, when you go away to the West, they will get after your parents. And they may not be safe. They might be imprisoned.
So if they can't catch him, they would hurt his family.
Yeah,
Okay.
it would. So then he didn't go. And that was the last I saw him.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah, it's sad, yes. It's very sad. But I never forgot him.
Did you ever try to track him down?
There was no way
Yeah.
to track him down. There was No way. Nothing. You couldn't. It was just, for me, just a beautiful memory. That's all it could be. It made me very sad, but that's the way it was. In those days, you had to be very tough.
Yeah, but still,
You know?
That love can be painful even when you're living through painful times.
Yeah.
You know, here you are living in the aftermath of World War II, and yet love and heartbreak still hurts.
Yes. Well, for one thing, it was something I couldn't do anything about. You know, I saw him, I fell in love with him right there. He was for me a very special being. And no matter, I never forgot him. You see, now I'm very old, but I still remember how I felt about him when that happened. Shall I tell you one thing? It was a love that was more in your heart, and it was not a sexual kind of a thing, you know. Uh-huh. It was, you loved that person with all your heart, and he did too. See, we both,
like a soul level connection, like a soulmate.
Yeah, a soulmate. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, it's a special gift I got.
To feel that?
By experiencing that he was in my heart. And for me it is special because I know that there is such a thing. I met others and I liked them very much, but not like that. And you see, even now, I can only be happy about it. So it's something that was very special all my life long. And now I'm 92. And I still remember how that was.
I think what is especially beautiful is here you'd just gone through the war, you know, some very awful things happened.
Yes.
And so then to have joy.
Yeah.
You had this light in your life.
Yes.
Which was Yuri.
That's right. And I will always.
This next couple actually learned about each other through a FOIA request. The Freedom of Information Act allows the public to request previously unreleased information from government offices. Think emails, documents, faxes, etc. Anyway, Stephen Allen Adams was working as a reporter when he filed a FOIA. And Jessica Wentz was the state government employee who was responsible for compiling all the documents for his request. That meant sorting through thousands of emails.
I hated him before I even met him because I had had such a headache going through all of those emails that August.
But when they finally did meet by chance, Stephen immediately adored Jessica. Over a year passed and they moved on to different jobs. And Jessica finally agreed to go on a first date. On Valentine's Day, no less.
You know, I made her spaghetti. I had a computer screen on the table that had a heart on it.
It had our initials in the heart, by the way.
Yeah, and then cheesy, and frankly, in hindsight, well over the top. And then to add to that, like I said, I'm overly honest, so I proceeded to tell her all about me, which at that time was college dropout, practically negative credit score, default on student loans, all the stuff that you typically tell a woman to woo her.
Yeah, this was great first date conversations. And for me, I left that dinner. It was a great dinner. Steven's a great cook, but I more or less left that dinner thinking, Steven's not for me. He's kind of checked off, the wrong boxes for me, being overly honest about some of his prior history. And I decided after that first date, you know what? Okay, we can be friends. He's a nice guy, but we should just be friends.
Yeah. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and that's what we were. We became friends. We hung out.
So you guys get to know each other more over the next few months, and then what happens?
In June of 2011, I lost my grandfather, who was very much like a father to me, and Stephen was there for me during a very rough time in my life, and I will always remember when I came home. I'm originally from Southern West Virginia, so when I came back to Charleston following my grandfather's service, Stephen was waiting right outside his apartment steps, waiting for me to come home so that we could talk about it. And I started making this realization that any man that is willing to sit outside on his apartment stoop and talk with me for hours about losing my grandfather and offering unwavering support definitely meant that we could maybe have a second first date.
It just felt right. And it has been right ever since. The thing about our relationship is we talk about everything.
We really do.
You're married, right?
We are. We will be celebrating 5 years of marriage on June 11th. To make our political story even better, our wedding fell in the middle of a special legislative session at the Capitol. Because, of course, it would. That would be the year that the state was really struggling to come to an agreement on a state budget. And literally, it was not even 2 hours after the Senate had voted on a budget and had passed it out of the Senate. We were married on the steps in front of the Senate doors. And the moment that I finished my wedding vows, the bells rang to issue in the House members to come into chambers. And I can't think of a better wedding story overall for us that really kind of captures our relationship and how our work intertwines with one another.
Jessica Wentz Adams and Stephen Allen Adams have been married for almost 5 years. They live together in Charleston, West Virginia. Every relationship goes through different stages, and lifelong partners eventually face a difficult chapter. Our next story is about grief and loss. Danny McNeely and Tim Albee talked about what it was like for each of them to lose their previous life partners.
If you could say you have one regret in life, what would it be and why?
I try to say that I live with no regrets, but if I had to sit down and really think about it, I feel like that almost year that I lost of really knowing my daughter after my partner had killed herself, I was that parent that I swore I'd never be that year. And, pawning her off on the grandparents and staying out all night. I went on 19 days awake one time, partying in my basement. And my daughter looked at me and ran to her room and started crying and screaming. I looked in the mirror and I was pale. But at that time, when I didn't sleep, I didn't have to see that vision of him hanging in our garage. If I can beat that and get through what I did with my partner, I think I can handle almost anything.
If you could have a 5-minute conversation with anybody, past or present, who would it be and why?
Not to go back to, obviously, the relationship. We had a routine. He was he would get up every morning 2 hours before I did. He would get my daughter up, They'd have their little time. He'd cook breakfast. He'd bring her into the bedroom, and he'd lay her next to me. He'd kiss her on the forehead and say, "Princess, Daddy, I'll see you later." And then he'd kiss me on my forehead, and he would say, "My prince, I'll see you later. You have a good day." And then we would sleep for another hour, and I'd get up and I'd get her ready for preschool. The day that he killed himself, now thinking back, when he kissed me, he kissed her and he said, "Remember, Daddy always loves you."
Wow.
He never went out of routine. And then when he kissed me, he said, "Don't ever blame yourself, and know that I love you and you were the best thing that happened to me." And I didn't catch it because I was halfway asleep. And I blamed myself. And it'd be him and be like, why? Like, we had a great life. And it took his dad saying, because he asked me to marry him, and he said, "I can't ask you to be my husband if my family thinks that you're my roommate." And his dad told him that he'd rather have a dead son than a faggot. And it was about 4 months after that, his dad had said that, and then he had killed himself. I just want to know why. Like, just that one question, even if it's not even 5 minutes, just like, why? I'll ask you the same question because it's actually a really good question.
Again, not to go back to the relationship thing.
We're all sappy
but
today.
Yeah, we're sappy as could be. Hallmark, I hope you're not listening to this.
If you are, cut us a check.
Please. But Eddie and I had our commitment ceremony in 2011. And in 2014, we were told, at that time it was a big issue all over the country of marriage equality, and it was still a state-by-state issue. And on October the 6th, 2014, it passed in Virginia. And I walked into our living room, and he had just woken up from a nap, and he was watching the news, and he said, "Well, baby, it's now official. It'll be soon here in West Virginia. What do you want to do?" And I said, "As soon as it's legal, I want to go to the courthouse and get the paperwork done." I said, "I don't need another big ceremony. I don't need all of that. I want to just make it legal." And he said, "Okay." And then he said, "Well, now we have to do something." And so we were literally making all the plans, and we weren't even married yet. And that night, about midnight, he looked at me. He said, "I love you." And I said, "I love you too." And he walked upstairs. And for some reason, at 2:30 in the morning, I woke up wide awake. I didn't know why, but I woke up just wide awake. And my little dog, Chloe, that he bought me, she was jumping around and we were playing and everything. And about 3:30, she jumped down off the couch, and I heard her run up the steps to the bedroom. And she let out not even a bark or a yelp, but it was like the most horrendous noise I had ever heard. And I ran upstairs, and he was in bed, and he wasn't moving. He wasn't responsive. I called 911. The paramedics got there, and they worked on him for about an hour. And they said he's been gone since about 2:30. And my first thought was, that was when I woke up. Should I have gone upstairs sooner? But if I had 5 minutes, I would ask him, did I do everything to make you happy? And I would just let him know that I would rather have 5 years of something wonderful than a lifetime of nothing special.
Absolutely. I think that's kind of why maybe we get along very well. We kind of different situations, but
similar history.
Yeah.
Different roads, but similar views. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what else to say. You done got me all my feels before I have to put on makeup.
Lord. We've done empty out the closets of all the skeletons.
That was Danny McNeely and Tim Albee discussing their grief after losing loved ones. They recorded their conversation back in 2018 when the StoryCorps mobile recording bus visited Charleston, West Virginia. We're going to hear one more story from last year, and there's an update. When we first interviewed this couple in 2021, it'd been a year since they'd last seen each other. Ayn Amjad is a doctor and a public health official who was living in West Virginia. Her partner Salar Kafai was living in Canada. They'd been dating long distance for 8 years and managed to make it work by seeing each other every few weeks. But because of COVID, they hadn't seen each other since January 2020, the longest they'd ever gone. So we wondered, how did they keep it going?
Thank goodness for FaceTime and WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And Zoom, all these, electric mediums that, keep us in touch and we get to see each other. But it is very challenging, not being able to physically be in one another's presence. But there is that hope that, things will get better and that we can reconnect in person sooner rather than later.
Yeah. It is very strange when you say it out loud. And it's very abnormal. But we really just don't talk about it, I guess, because then it makes us very sad when we say it out loud.
Of course. I think a lot of people ultimately give up on long distance because it is so hard. And clearly you guys have a special enough bond that it's worth holding on to. Can you kind of talk about that, why you have decided to stick it out, even though, the long distance, there's not quite an end in sight yet. It'll be there one day, but you don't have like an end date to it yet. What makes you guys decide to stay together?
I think just the common values that we both have with one another. Like, obviously there's the physical attraction with one another,
Right.
but our outlook, our perspective, the family values that we've got are quite strong. The bond that we've got is quite strong. I can say that's what's kept me in, that I haven't met anybody who could ever be better than Ayn, from my perspective. I love her wholeheartedly.
I've met a lot of people in my life, and I tell Salar this all the time. That there's no one that I would say can beat him in any of those respects. And besides all that, my father, who did pass away, he never talked to me about relationships much, but he made 2 comments about Salar. One was that he's a very nice, gentle soul. He has no angry marks on his face. He has no wrinkles. He's such a calm person. And he also once told me, don't marry someone just so that they're there with you every day to have a perfect life. Be with someone that you enjoy, that you can be with your whole life, even if they're far away. You don't have to marry someone just so that you come home and have a picket fence life. I found Salar. We found each other a second time around for a reason. So it doesn't matter if he lives in Canada to me. I'm not going to just break up with him just because he's not here with me. Just I have someone who is at home when I come home at 5:00. It doesn't matter to me. So Paul Newman said, I have steak at home. Why am I going to go out for a hamburger? So Salar's my I'll keep my steak.
That was Ayn Amjad and Salar Kafai. Now, for the update, Ayn and Salar actually broke up last spring. And that's a part of love too, right? Breaking up. I wanted to know if Ayn had any insights on something that so many of us have been through. So I called her up.
We started out long distance, but we also started out with the idea that we would be in the same place and then have the same goals. And to me, the biggest part was to start a family, have children, and eventually obviously be together. And, after some time, really after the first year or two, when those goals aren't met and it just keeps going on and you don't realize, God, 7 years pass, and then you're not still there. It's just not worth it. And then it doesn't matter how old you are. It just gets old really fast. And to me, that's not the purpose of a relationship. And it just got tiring for me because that's not how I want to live my life at all.
Yeah. This past year, I went through a breakup as well. And it's funny, you have a lot more free time when you're not focused on a relationship and you kind of rediscover yourself a little. I'm curious, did you experience that?
I guess, most of my relationships have been long distance for some reason, and I don't know why that is. So I'm used to being alone. So, I was reading a lot more and just spending more time with my family. And I guess it just kind of puts things back into perspective of what makes you happy, and you just kind of figuring out what really is worth spending your time with. And and not just, I guess, settling for just being with someone. Like, I mean, my sisters right now are they keep trying to put me on dating websites, and I just keep telling them I don't want to do it. I mean, you can go out with anybody just to go out, to dinner or do whatever, but that's not important at this stage, because it's just not worth it. So yeah, I'm used to being alone, I guess. And it's not that I want to be alone. I like being around people. I enjoy people's company. I enjoy laughing and just doing stuff. I've just been going out more with girlfriends or groups of people or just my family now, because it's just not worth just going out with just any guy right now. I just don't find that useful, I guess.
Yeah. One kind of prioritizes one's time. And then any tips for anyone who is going through kind of the raw stages of a heartbreak right now?
No, everyone says this, it takes time, and well, the other thing is Salar and I broke up, and he, the thing is, we didn't break up for anything wrong. Like, he didn't cheat on me. I didn't cheat on him. But there was nothing right about it. Things were just not right, and I think that's why it took so long. Like, he was not a mean person. He never did anything wrong. But when you can be with someone for 7 years, but if it's just not right, it's just not right. It's like someone cannot be what you want. You can, I guess, fall out of love with someone too, right? And I think we stay with people for the wrong reasons too, because you're waiting for them to do something wrong. Maybe you're waiting for them to cheat on you, or maybe you cheat on them just so that they get mad at you. But I think you can be with someone for the wrong reason, maybe too, and then you just keep going and going and going. But maybe they didn't do it for you, or maybe they're not the one for you. But and I think that's why you can end up where I am too right now. You don't get what you want out of life, like because that person didn't give you what you wanted. Like, I mean, we were together 7 years, but we didn't figure it out after the first 2 that we can live in the same damn city. I mean, come on now, people. There's something wrong with that. I mean, it's not like people didn't tell us that. It's not like people didn't say, "What's wrong with you guys? What's wrong with you guys? Why can't you figure it out?" We just had excuses after excuse, But there was something wrong with that. There's something wrong when 2 people can't figure it out, right? I believe that, but you just keep going and going, because we got along. But I think when you break up with someone, it just takes time, right? You get over a few things. You might get upset. You might think you made a mistake, but no, you didn't. I've never gone back to someone after I've broken up, and I never think you should.
Well, I want to say thank you again to everyone who shared their stories with us last year. And thank you, Ayn, for the update. I hope you all get to spend some time with your loved ones or doing something you love. I'm going to be skiing and keeping my eyes peeled for that discount Valentine's chocolate on February 15th. Till next time, thanks for joining us as we journey throughout Appalachia. Our theme music is by Matt Jackford. Other music this week was provided by Jake Exerces Fussell, Dinosaur Burps, Poddington Bear, and Blue Dot Sessions. Roxy Todd is our producer. Our interim executive producer is Eric Douglas. And we're excited to announce the newest member of our team. Alex Runyon is our new associate producer. Kelly Libby edited our show this week. Our audio mixer is Patrick Stevens. Xander Alloy also helped produce this episode. You can find us on Twitter @InAppalachia. You can also send us an email to insideappalachia@wvpublic.org. Visit wvpublic.org/InsideAppalachia to subscribe or download all of our stories. Or look for us wherever you get your podcasts. Inside Appalachia is a production of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.